Those are the exact same arm. They are the exact same arm. This one, the Iron Man arm, has a peg on top of it. But that doesn't make it unique. Otherwise, it is the exact same arm, the exact same molding. It's just repainted. It's nothing unique. It's cool that they give you the ability to use the gimmick with only a single figure, rather than making you buy more than one figure just to use the gimmick. But it doesn't make up for the fact that these guys are just really lacking. I like them, and in that I like their designs. I like them in that they add to my collection, but they're not good figures. They're not great figures. The Iron Man 2 figures were great figures. The only thing that these things do better is the paint-ups. That is not enough to make up for the things that this series does wrong. My final verdict, guys, if you haven't guessed it already, is don't buy these guys. Even with the new trailer, which shows a bunch of specialty armors, doesn't really make me get excited about other figures in this line. Unless something drastically changes regarding this line, just kind of avoid it. It was March of last year when I first took a look at the Iron Man 3 Assemblers toy line. I said at that time that if my opinion on the line changed, I would do a follow-up video discussing why. And quite frankly, I never actually intended to do it because I never expected my opinion of the line to change. I guess that just goes to show that sometimes you have to eat your words because, well, there are quite a few things about this line that I really enjoy now, which is why we're taking another look at it today. In front of me here, I have the 5 figures from the line that I've picked up since the previous video, and I don't have all of their limbs with me today because some of them are quite uninteresting, but I do have enough here that I believe I can explain to you genuinely why I think, especially now, over a year later, when these figures are still warming the shelves at your local Toys R Us, about to go on sale for Christmas, it might be the time for you to start picking them up. Because once the first wave is through and the following wave started to hit shelves, this line really picked up. I don't remember the names of all these guys, but the names aren't what's really important. They're all Iron Man, obviously, and they all have something unique about them. In fact, 2 of these figures out of the 5 have their original arms, while the rest have had some sort of limb swapping going on here. And while my initial complaints about the line still stand, the articulation is pretty bad, and a lot of the limbs we get are just repaints of each other. I believe there's enough variety here for the gimmick to actually matter at this point. I do remember the name of this one. This is the Silver Centurion. And it's not exactly how I would have envisioned the Silver Centurion in the movie universe, but I quite like it. The one in the middle here, which is my all-time favorite from the line, is called Crosscut. And if I'm not mistaken, this was intended to be a stealth armor of some kind. I do not have his original limbs any longer. I lost them, I will admit to that. But they were very boring, straight-up plain Iron Man limbs, done in the same blue as his body. I much like these limbs better, the limbs that came with the figure as the alternates. You have this that looks like it's some sort of launcher, and I totally dropped it. And then you have this machine gun limb that looks very nice, and I really like it a lot. And you have on Crosscut here all of these little laser emitters all over his body. And then he came with 2 limbs which feature saw blades that actually spin, as you can see, though I prefer only to use one of them at a time. This figure has these really cool hydraulic clamp limbs, which, like every other figure in the line, do detach and can attach to any other figure in the line. And this, I think, is the figure that sold me on the line. This one right here. With such unique limbs, you finally have some interesting combination options. And finally, we have this figure over here, which is the largest tragedy of the bunch, where I lost the simple, plain, boring limbs from the stealth armor. I lost an alternate limb from this guy that was a nifty little Gatling gun arm, and I feel terrible for losing it, because it was really awesome. This one, however, putting that aside, is another figure that really changed my opinion of the line, as it actually has elbow articulation on its alternate limb. And that's just fantastic. I know it's still not common amongst figures in the line, but this cool energy blade, which looks very nice, as you can see, actually has added articulation, which opened up possibilities. That meant that every so often we might get alternate limbs that made up for some of the detriments of the line overall. And while I'm sad to say, and I genuinely mean that, I'm sad to say the line didn't last very long, so we didn't get a lot of that. It does change my opinion of the line overall, and make me see the worth in this gimmick. We, of course, have some other limbs here. Some of the generic limbs that we saw in the first video. We have crosscuts on our arm is in there. We have this thing here, which is a shield, which can shoot a missile. And it does have a trigger, and it does shoot fairly far. Overall, guys, there's not a whole lot to say about this. Their paint applications are still great. The molding is still great. The gimmick is still relatively easy to pull off. Notice again, though, I'm not focusing on the legs because, as I mentioned in the previous video, the legs are annoying to reattach once you have detached them. And I don't really see the point, as several of them are just simply different lengths from each other. So there's not a whole lot of swapping opportunities you can get, as you have to use legs with similar designs to each other. Otherwise, you have to swap both legs out, and then it doesn't look enough like you're mixing and matching the figure. One other thing to note is, as the line went on, we started getting things like these missiles, which can attach to any of these peg slots throughout the figures, allowing for all kinds of different aesthetic options. I attached them to this guy, not as missiles but as rockets, as I imagine he would be quite heavy and need the extra boost. And I think that's what eventually sold me on this line, as the accessories and as the limb options started to become more and more unique from figure to figure. I started to see the potential here, as we never really got descriptions in the movies of any of these armors or what they could do. All we had was the packaging information, and it's pretty sparse, which means that if we want to get full play value out of these guys, we have to imagine how they might fight, how they might function, what their strengths and weaknesses might be. And for kids, that's absolutely fantastic, and even as an adult collector, I found that quite appealing. So going into the holiday season, going into the gift-giving season, I think it's about time. I think it's been long enough. I think it's time that this line was finally revisited. While I still don't think it's the best line, and I still think the Iron Man 2 movie line did things better overall, this is definitely not the cringe-worthy entry into the Iron Man legacy that I initially thought it was. And that's really all there is to say about that. Which makes that it for this video, guys. I know it's pretty short, but there really wasn't a whole lot to say. The line got better. I think you should check it out. So please help me out, like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you feel so inclined. In the description down below, you'll find links to all the other things I'm working on, including a link to my collections video. Check that out, and if you see anything in it that you'd like me to review, let me know and I will see what I can do. This has been Awesome John 22 with this long-awaited video. This has been Awesome John 22, and I will talk to you guys later.